Now let's talk about the future. And we've got some folks on this panel that will probably have a large hand in shaping the future of this community. First of all, to my immediate right is our current North Carolina representative from District 9, Brian Brown, who represents Pitt County. To my immediate right is the Vice Chairman of the Pitt County Commissioners, Glenn Webb. And to my immediate left, we have back for the second panel today. You're the only two-timer today.
I feel honored. Thank you.
Alan Thomas, the mayor of Greenville. And we're hoping to be joined also by Senator Lewis Pate, who had confirmed that he'd be here. Hopefully, Lewis will be able to join us here shortly. I'd like to start, as we have every one of these hours, and just give these gentlemen a chance to pontificate a little bit. Give us 3 or 4 minutes on what you see as the future of this community. And we'll start with Representative Brown. Brian Brown, pick that up there closely and give us your comments.
Well, thank you very much, Henry, and thank you for organizing this great event. Being the final event, I think it's going to be difficult for us to follow all the great groups that went before us. A lot of great points, a lot of great minds, so it'll be interesting. Greenville and Pitt County, we have a lot going for us. In the last 15 months of me being an elected official, I've had the great honor of being able to travel around the state, visit other communities, visit other regions, other school districts, kind of get a feel for what they're doing. And every time I come back home to Greenville and Pitt County, I continue to be amazed at the assets that we have and the opportunities that we have in front of us, particularly surrounding what I feel is just quality collaboration from the city, county, and state level. When you look at our elected officials and the economic development folks trying to work together to not only do what's best for Greenville and Pitt County, but for the region as a whole, understanding that we are the economic hub of Eastern North Carolina, and that's an enormous responsibility. And we have to continue to be good neighbors to help foster entrepreneurism, to help foster our education system and our medical system right here in Pitt County and Greenville. I think that there's still a lot of work to do. We have to continue to build this robust environment so that we can attract people coming into the state, so we can attract others throughout the state to want to relocate their businesses to Greenville, want to move their families and raise their families here. You heard a lot from the last panel regarding economic development. One of the things that really stuck in my mind was something that Tom Taft said in terms of dealing with the bureaucracy in Raleigh of getting things done. That's something that we've been committed to changing, and that commitment still stands strong, and we have a lot of work to do. We have to get the government out of the way so that private industry can be able to flourish and be able to grow this economy and really make a difference in our community. And I look forward to the future ahead, because it is certainly very, very bright here in Greenville.
Okay, let's go to the opening comments now. Glenn Webb, the Vice Chairman of the Pitt County Commissioners.
This microphone's hot now. No, I agree with Brian. We have to take advantage of the anchors that we already have here, Vidant Medical Center, our industrial parks, the university. We have a world-class community college that helps train for those jobs. That's part of every incentive package that we do, is the training that's going to come from Pitt Community College to get these workers out there working. We have to look for new economic development opportunities. And I think what Brian, the way he described his role in Raleigh, helping create an environment to attract business to the state and ultimately steer it to Pitt County. It's our job as the commissioners, working with our economic development team, to prepare proper incentives. And I'd just like to say, we don't give cash incentives. We get a return on investment in 7 years or less, so that money comes back and we're putting people to work. And I think when we work in tandem with our state government and county governments, we can really make something happen here, because we have all the elements that you need to really grow a community and to make this a county that the Piedmont should fear in our economic development capability, because we also do a lot to spur our entrepreneurs. And the small business is always the hub of any economic growth, and we do a lot to support and seek growth with our entrepreneurs. We've got a lot of startup businesses, software companies right here in Pitt County. So the future's bright as far as I'm concerned. I think if we stay on the course that we're on and continue with our ability to attract business and support small business, that we've got a lot going for us, and we're going to have a good future here.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Mayor Alan Thomas.
Well, thanks, Henry, and again, the distinct honor to get a chance to be at 8 a.m. and come back again at 4. So we appreciate the chance to be with this distinguished panel, and the same thing that we talked about this morning in terms of transportation. There's not a stranger on this panel. Everyone here is someone that we all communicate with on a regular basis about things of substance that are going to keep this community moving forward, not just next year for the next decade, for the next 20 or 30 years. That's what we're planning for your children and our children. What is their future going to be like in Eastern North Carolina? What is their future going to be like in Greenville? And so many times in the past, we competed against a Goldsboro, a Kinston, and maybe some of our local communities. But I think the main thing and the theme here that we look at is in Eastern North Carolina and in Greenville, we have to reach out and have a partnership and a cooperation. And whether that's education, whether that's transportation, anything, whether it's the medical environment, wherever we can work together, that is key for what this community is going to look like for the next 10 and 20 years. And there has been some changes, and some of those are serious challenges of this community. Education is key. We have to have a quality workforce. We have to work closely with our leadership in Raleigh and in Washington, D.C. We have to stay connected. That's the only way you're going to keep this community engaged and moving forward.
All right, thank you very much, all of you, for those comments. Let's talk about the future of Greenville. I came here in 1971, and you wouldn't think this is the same place. So 40 years, the metamorphosis that's taken place here has been unbelievable. And so you look at that and say, Mayor, what's this place going to look like in 40 years? We've had a conversation today about interstate access, the fact that we may have an interstate here soon. I know you're working on that. Try to finish the belt line around Greenville with the Southwest Bypass, the 10th Street connector coming right through town. Are we positioned for the growth that's going to come, and are we going to continue to grow like we've grown for the last 40 years? We've heard today that the population of Greenville has doubled in 20 years.
It has, and think about the next 10 and 20 years, what the population is going to be like. We're very close within the short measure of being over 100,000 citizens here in Greenville. And if you think about the MSA of Pitt County, the growth across this county and this region, how much continues to grow, infrastructure. Are we staying ahead on infrastructure? Who are we comparing ourselves to across not just the state, but across the nation? And I had the opportunity a week ago to meet with the metro mayors, which are the mayors of the largest 20 cities in North Carolina, and you hear some very similar themes. They're all concerned about what the future is going to be like in their community. But you talk to a guy like Ron Kimball, who is the assistant city manager up in Charlotte. He talks about
I'm a former city manager
here
right, yeah.
as well. Where I first met him when I was student body president, and a lot of our student leaders will end up being our young professionals and our young families, and then ultimately end up being leaders in this community. And many of us can say that. Being able to keep our talent here in Eastern North Carolina, for me, is the biggest thing that we can possibly do. We educate so many wonderful people, but we have not done enough to create an environment here to keep our young professionals in Eastern North Carolina to start their companies here in Greenville or regionally. We all benefit from that, grow their companies here. I want the next 10, 20, or 30 Phil Hodgeses of the world to set up business in Eastern North Carolina and Greenville, and that comes to quality of life as well as education and many things. I think that's our true challenge. I think we have the seeds here of opportunity, but we got to be able to create an environment to keep them here. And Greenville is going to continue to grow, Henry, which is the basis of your question, but we're going to have to continue to be able to meet that challenge.
Let me go to Brian Brown. Brian, we were just talking a moment ago about the issues with state regulation. And Republicans are now in charge. You were part of the new Republican group that came in as part. We see Senator Page joining us now. He's part of that group as well. But is there enough going on? Is there enough focus in Raleigh on what's happening east of Raleigh? We were talking about it last hour. You have that crescent that's going to take care of itself. Greensboro, actually starting in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Cary, you go over to Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and then down to Charlotte. That area is going to take care of itself. But is Eastern North Carolina going to get any help from Raleigh? What's your take on that?
I think Eastern Carolina will get help from Raleigh, and I think it's been a transition process. We really have went many years without having a lot of focus on Eastern North Carolina, really east of 95, period. And you continue to hear that conversation. But folks like myself and Senator Pate, we've really been able to go and champion as strong voices for the East. And what really takes is a collaborative effort of bringing other leaders from across the state into places like Greenville and Pitt County, showing them what we have, the assets that we have from a medical community, the assets that we have from an education standpoint, the assets that we have from a community just as a self-sustained community. You know, I look back at when we moved here 10 years ago, and the big reason was the people that are like you sitting in this room, the people that said hello in the grocery stores, the people that were behind this community. We're a very special community right here in North Carolina. So bringing those leaders across the state to really experience the true zest of Eastern North Carolina has been an important aspect. And they're doing it, and they're understanding it, and they're believing in it. And their focus of saying, you know what, we're going to look at what we can do here in Eastern North Carolina from an investment standpoint has really been, you know, I think pretty strong. And I think we're going to continue to see that renewed commitment to the East as we move forward with new leadership in the House, obviously, in the coming session.
And I know you guys have been beating that drum. I know, Brian, you beat it all the time. Let me bring in Senator Lewis Pate, who's just joining us. Good to see you, Lewis. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm sorry I was late, but I was out talking with some people about Medicaid, of all things.
Well, we had that discussion here earlier today too.
Sorry I missed it.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you. Let me throw you the microphone here and let you talk. We're talking about the future of Eastern North Carolina. You have an interesting perspective. You represent Pitt County and Greenville, but you don't live here.
Right.
But you live in Wayne County,
Right.
which has its own set of challenges. Where are we going in Eastern North Carolina? Are we going to flourish in the future? Is Raleigh going to look at us the way we hope they will and give us the help that we need to grow?
I think we've got some potential that we probably have not realized yet. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be over today. We have potential in Eastern North Carolina. We haven't realized it just yet, but I think we've got some things that are coming. First of all, let me congratulate Pitt County on being the idol for all the rest of us in the East, because you have a very good model here. And of course, the medical school and the university and now the dental school are very, very important to this part of the state. But we have not developed our ports like we should. We don't have the infrastructure. I think that is key to the development of the East. We could bring in thousands upon thousands of jobs, and that's what really is going to make us grow. And I think we need to really work on that without any delays. Secretary of Transportation Tata was in Goldsboro yesterday to talk about some topics on transportation, and he brought out the fact himself that the port at Moorhead is very, very critical to us. So we've got to work on that.
All right, let me go to Glenn Webb here. Glenn, what's your perspective? What do you see? This community helps itself quite a bit. Are we getting what we need from Raleigh?
Well, more so than we have. It's nice now to have a legislative team that reminds the leadership that the Atlantic Ocean doesn't hit I-95 at high tide, and that's good to have here. And
Just Route
and,
12.
right.
It does hit Route 12. You're right.
In serving as the vice president of the Association of Commissioners, I'm able to spend some time in Raleigh and speak with the leadership as well as their legislative team about county goals. So have we gotten everything we've needed? No, and I don't think we expect to get everything we ask for, but we are definitely on the right track, and more attention is being paid to Eastern North Carolina, which is nice considering most of the representation in the General Assembly comes from the Piedmont. And so what that tells me is we have a group of leaders from our area that's speaking up for us while they're up there, and they're bringing attention, and they're moving up in the leadership, and that's very important for us down here. And the mayor touched on transportation issues, and interstate access would do a lot for us. Having some interstate designation, because ultimately we know that industry doesn't worry about our plight and the fact that we need the people to work. They worry about can you build our products, and can you ship our products? And so if we have the interstate designation, that does tell them we can do both things, and we're very convenient to 95. So once that bypass is built, I think you'll see a lot more development come that way. But we do grow in spite of things. If our national association, NACO, has something called County Tracker, and if you can double click on any county in the nation. If you double click on Pitt County, you'll see that we're outpacing the state in a lot of things, such as job growth, home values are rebounding, and our unemployment rate is diving. And that came from a collaborative effort from our cities, our counties, and our legislature working together to make these things happen. So we're on the right track. Have we gotten everything we needed? No, but we're moving that way, and I think that in the near future we'll start to see more.
Let me ask all of you to look in your future, into your crystal ball. Mayor, we'll start with you. We've talked a lot about different things today. We've talked about roads. We've talked about the economy. We've talked about hospitals. We've talked about the university. We've talked about 4 unrelated in the Truna area. We've talked about riverfront development. Take me now to, what is today? Take me now to March 13th, 30 years from now. What does this community look like to you? What do we see here that we don't see here today?
Well, one thing that I'm counting on seeing is a vibrant center city for Greenville, North Carolina. And not just that, that has to be, as they say, your front porch for your entire community begins with the vitality of your center city area. I think we, with the university, will continue to grow substantially. This city will continue to grow. I think you'll see a significant transition in the retail and the different commercial nodes throughout this city. Greenville will continue to grow. I think you'll continue to see growth throughout this area. I think you're going to, based on the strong efforts of many people at this table, you're going to see a city that is well connected transportation-wise. You're going to see us competing just as you hear of an RTP and a Triad and Metro Charlotte. You'll know of, as one of my friends like to call it, RTP East or Quad East, as we like to call it. Our cities working together where our medical, our academic, and our military, and all of our assets from our ports. We're competing not against, again, a Kinston or Wilmington. We're competing against areas of Austin, Texas, and California and other areas. That is my vision for 30 years down the road, that we've done more to actually mean it in terms of making an investment in keeping the talent that we're fostering and growing here through our university system, and also a strong and vibrant medical environment with a world-class cancer center and heart hospital and some of the other aspects where we continue to be, and it was discussed here earlier, a hub and spoke type environment where we're creating opportunities and growth and jobs out of this area for not just Pitt County, but also across the region.
Pass that microphone down to Lewis Pate. Lewis is the chairman of the DHHS committee, Health and Human Services Committee for the North Carolina Senate. Senator Pate, this community has had unbelievable support in terms of state tax dollars flowing in here for our heart center, for our dental school, for our nursing school, for all the things that have become a world-class medical community. We spent a whole hour talking about it today. The state's got trouble. We got financial trouble. There's not as much money flowing around as there used to be. Is our growth going to get stunted a little bit moving forward?
Unless we start managing our finances better, yes, we will get stunted. But I can tell you that the department and the governor and the legislature, I believe, are all together focusing on Medicaid. We've got to reform Medicaid because we cannot adequately forecast how much money it's going to cost us every year, what the state's portion is going to be. The state has to kick in 35% of the cost of Medicaid. And until we can forecast that accurately, we cannot do things like teacher raises and other state employees' raises and roads and all the other parts that the state is supposed to be furnishing. It's difficult if you can't control Medicaid. And so that is one thing that we're working on, and very hard during this interim part of when we're not in session. And the governor is going to develop a plan and present it to us next week. Of course, it's already developed, I'm sure, but it's going to be presented to us next week, and for the General Assembly to take it up during the short session. It might not be exactly what we want. It might be that we're going to redesign it, but it is a move in the right direction. And so we have to have a goal of increasing care for the Medicaid population at a sustainable cost so that we know what it's going to cost us each year. Very important.
You know, Senator Pate, you mentioned Medicaid again. Medicaid keeps creeping. I guess you can't have a conversation about anything in North Carolina without talking about Medicaid right now.
That's
I
correct.
mean, as somebody put it, North Carolina has a cancer,
Yep.
and we've got to figure out how to solve it. And it really has taken a toll on the entire state, no matter what you look at. Brian Brown, you deal with it. You also deal with budgets, and we talk about the medical areas, but the university here. We've had budget cuts. I'm on the board of governors now. We just got our hands slapped a little bit by the state budget director, and he's saying, "You guys stop asking for more money. It just ain't there." Meanwhile, other universities systems across the country last year, we've turned the corner with some of those things. But you're dealing with so many issues. Teachers want to raise, government workers want to raise. And of course, that affects our community as well. But what do you see in terms of the immediate future and down the road, again, look into your crystal ball with what's going to happen to this community? Are we going to continue to have the accelerated growth that we've seen?
I think that it'll be an accelerated growth, but I think it might be a little more of a hybrid scenario than what we're currently seeing. When you kind of look at the funding aspect of things right now, I mean, the state is in trouble. We have a lot of different issues, but we're not unique. I mean, there's a lot of states across the country that are in trouble financially and with overruns in Medicaid and so on. When we look at the education aspect, which is something I'm intimately familiar with, we have to do things for our education system. We have to do things for our teachers in terms of giving them those much needed raises, attracting a higher level of talent, a higher level of profession, so that when those teachers come out of college, they want to be there, and when they get there, they want to stay there, so that we can educate these kids, and that the kids can, once they graduate, they stay in our community. What I really see Greenville looking like in the future is a hybrid between not only a good, robust retirement community because of what we have from a medical position, and that's from retirees coming down from the north and other places because of our cost of living and what they can access from a medical standpoint. But I also see us in a prime position because of our university system and our medical field to be able to really attract some of the things that the RTP has traditionally attracted from a biotechnology standpoint, from an advanced manufacturing standpoint. So a nice blend of retirement and youthful entrepreneurship here in our community that I think will really change the face of our community for a long, long time to come.
While you've got the microphone there, we had Dr. Paul Cunningham here earlier today, for the dean of the Brody School of Medicine. You've been at ground zero of the fight to try to keep funding from being cut from our med school. I think there's a realization that everybody really doesn't understand the Brody School of Medicine as it relates to the other medical school in the state of North Carolina in Chapel Hill,
Right.
who owns a hospital.
That's right.
And we talked about that earlier today. The Brody School of Medicine has had some tremendous cuts. I think something close to $17, $18 million in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you start to question sustainability. That's a big deal for our economy.
It's huge.
Where are we on that, and do you see it getting fixed?
My hope is that it gets fixed. And in the House, we've really got leadership to stand up, take notice, and understand the differences between our university system and our School of Medicine and that other School of Medicine. And like you said, really identifying that we do not own our hospital. We've seen a great deal of cuts to the Brody School of Medicine, and we were able to save millions of dollars for the Brody School of Medicine, but we're still at risk. And, the reality is we're looking at about a $15 million cut. And what that means is the difference between solvency and not being profitable. And that profitability is a big difference in being able to say we're going to keep these clinics open. We're going to be able to continue our mission as a region to be able to provide medical care to the rural communities, much of which, when you look at the percentages, they're cash pay, they're Medicaid, they're Medicare. There's a lot of difficulty in really running a sustainable practice based upon those numbers. So it is critical. It's not just critical for Greenville, but it's critical for the eastern part of the state and all of the areas that East Carolina serves, not only from a practice standpoint, but from attracting those physicians who come to East Carolina University, the Brody School of Medicine, and then graduate and practice in eastern North Carolina. And without that availability to sustain, they're not going to stay here, and that's a critical component.
It's a short session, going to start in May, and we
right.
hear it's going to be really short. We
It's
hear
gonna
you
be very
guys are
short.
going to, it's going to be a record. You're going to be in and out of Raleigh and lickety split.
Mm-hmm.
your leader is running for United States Senate, so he wants to get out and campaign.
No comment on
they,
that.
Are they going to take up these kind of issues in the short session?
We've got the commitment from the House that we will take up both what's called the upper payment limit as well as SODCO, which is the debt set-off that's really affected East Carolina University. We will take that up in the short session from the House. We will then pass it off to our colleagues in the Senate. And, you know, what I think, I talked about the collaboration earlier, and I can't say enough about folks like Michelle Brooks and Brian Jowers from East Carolina coming into Raleigh, sitting down with the leaders both in the House and the Senate, really walking through the fine points of what is taking place here in Eastern North Carolina, helping them understand the differences. And you know, they've really had an eye-opening as to what's going on over here and just how powerful this decision was.
And I don't want to leave Glenn out, but I do want to go back, since you brought that up, to Senator Pate. Senator Pate, these issues with the Brody School of Medicine, or do you think the Senate's on board for this session?
Our job, for those of us who are in the Senate in the eastern part of the state, our job is to be sure that those from the western part of the state are acclimated to what the difference is over here, because as Brian adequately brought out, we don't own the hospital here, and so there is a disparity there, and we've got to be sure that the Senate knows that this is critical to East Carolina.
Yeah. And what these two elected officials are tiptoeing around, that I'll tell you, is that it looks to me like East Carolina is, I'm just trying to keep you out of trouble, Lewis. East Carolina has been really kind of, and I think you confirmed this, has kind of been collateral damage to some of the things that have taken place in Raleigh, with Rex Hospital and Wake Med having some disagreements about competition, right?
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
right.
And we've got to make the ship sail correctly.
Yeah. But these guys are getting that message out for us, and that's good. Let me go to Glenn, and then we'll take a break and see what kind of questions we have from the audience. Vice Chairman Webb, look into your crystal ball. What does this community look like 30 years from now?
Well, you know, different from the mayor, I don't just, you know, he's got a city to run, but I look at the benefits of the growth of the city for the rest of the county. As Greenville grows, so does Pitt County, but also so does our region. He and I have had a lot of discussions about getting out of our silos and growing the region, because we just don't want to grow based on the weaknesses of the counties that touch our borders. As Lenoir County grows, as Wayne County grows, Pitt County will grow, especially the district I represent in southern Pitt County. You know, the people that don't want to live right in the middle of town can find a good and wonderful home right down in Ayden, right down in Winterville, small communities with that good feel, and local restaurants and things that people like. And that would be good to get them, as Greenville grows, get them there. And with our industrial parks growing down in the southern part of the county, I think in 40 years what you'll see is a community of well over 200,000 people on our way to 300,000 with good jobs. I don't want to, you know, prediction's a bad idea, but I think we'll have an industrial boom here. As the Piedmont builds out, we'll start to expand. And they'll see the benefits of the East, the land values, the home values, the good community schools, the university, the hospital. The more we can show off what we have going on here, the more people will want to come here. And that's something as a board, the commissioners, and we work a lot now with the Greenville City Council and the small municipalities, is really showing off our community as a whole and working together versus working Pitt County to do something in Greenville and Ayden. And we work together and show off all of our strengths. So I think we're going to see a great community.
You know, you mentioned some of the bedroom communities to Greenville, like Winterville, Ayden, Grifton. It strikes me that when we get that superhighway built out there, the Southwest Bypass, and we talked about that earlier today, and I know Mayor Thomas is all over that, but if we can get that built, Mayor Thomas, you're going to see interconnectivity between, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between Ayden and Greenville. And the folks in Ayden have been presenting themselves as an alternative to living in the city metropolitan environment. But let's be honest, 30 years from now, Southwest Bypass is built. Ayden is going to be kind of like Winterville has become. You're going to cross one street and go into another and not realize that you've left one town and gone to another one.
Well, I know that's what Mayor Tripp's counting on. He's put in plenty of infrastructure over in Ayden with big anticipations, and I know how much he loves his town over there.
But that is going to happen, is it not? I mean, one of the things we're going to see in 30 years with that Southwest Bypass being built, you're going to see Greenville growing out there like crazy in the next 30 years.
Well, what we want to do is keep the integrity and character of our small town main streets. I think that's very important for those areas, always keep their character. Other communities have been able to do that. Parts of Cary and Apex and other areas and Monroe and others have kept the character of their small towns, but also have high-speed access. So you have the ability to get to where you need to go for your medical care, to go to work, to get a good education, and also get to other parts of the state. And I think what what high-speed connectivity, and as Senator Pate and I have talked about extensively for the past couple of years, is we want high-speed connectivity around all of eastern North Carolina. That's what the whole Quad East initiative is about. That's why we went around to 7 or 8 of counties, and they all voted
What do you mean by
unanimously.
high-speed connectivity? What are you talking about?
Well, we want people in Goldsboro having the transportation to be able to, whether it's by bus, rail, multimodal, to get to Greenville if that wants to be their place of employment or education, and vice versa. We want to be able to take advantage of the assets of our handful of local communities where we also have interstate and high-speed connectivity. We're not going to stop just at a southwest bypass for Greenville. I hope we're continuing to be bold in our movement towards connectivity all around this region, because that's how other regions compete around the world. Is high-speed connectivity and infrastructure is always the key. Having that, you can build, that's a canvas, so to speak, for what you can build going forward into the future. And I hope by then we'll be talking about a second and maybe a third airlines at our airport, which we should have had 10 years ago as an airplane flies over.
I just heard that
U.S. Air just flew over.
I just heard Boxcar Willie from U.S. Air fly over. So, you and I were on the same track. We hadn't even talked about air.
So air and rail. Like you said, we're dreaming here going forward. And, you have to plan to move forward. It's important.